Let me sustain this. Steve Turner, the brilliant English journalist, writing sarcastically and with a touch of humor about what secularization has actually done, penned these brilliant words. We believe now in Marx, Freud, and Darwin. We believe everything is okay as long as you don't hurt anyone to the best of your definition of hurt and to the best of your definition of knowledge. We believe in sex before, during, and after marriage. We believe in the therapy of sin. We actually believe that adultery is fun. We only believe that taboos are taboo. We believe that everything is getting better, despite evidence to the contrary. The evidence must be investigated, and you can prove anything with evidence. We believe there's something in horoscopes, UFOs, and bent spoons. Jesus was a good man, just like Buddha, Muhammad, and ourselves. He was a good moral teacher, although we think some of his good morals were basically bad. We believe that all religions are basically the same, at least the ones that we read were. They all believe in love and goodness. They only differ on matters of creation, sin, heaven, hell, God, and salvation. We believe that after death comes the nothing, because when you ask the dead what happens, they say nothing. If death is not the end, and if the dead have lied, then it's compulsory heaven for all, excepting perhaps Hitler, Stalin, and Genghis Khan. We believe in Masters and Johnson. What's selected is average. What's average is normal. What's normal is good. We believe in total disarmament. We believe there are direct links between warfare and bloodshed. Americans should beat their guns into tractors, and the Russians would be sure to follow. We believe that man is essentially good. It's only his behavior that lets him down. This is the fault of society. Society is the fault of conditions. Conditions are the fault of society. We believe that each man must find truth that is right for him, and reality will adapt accordingly. The universe will readjust. History will alter. We believe there is no absolute truth, accepting the truth that there is no absolute truth. We believe in the rejection of creeds and the flowering of individual thought. And then he puts this postscript. If chance be the father of all flesh, disaster is his rainbow in the sky. And when you hear state of emergency, sniper kills 10, youths go looting, bomb blasts school, it is but the sound of man worshiping his maker. If chance be the father of all flesh, disaster is his rainbow in the sky. And when you hear state of emergency, sniper kills 10, youths go looting, bomb blast school, it's but the sound of man worshiping his maker. If you're the random product of time plus matter plus chance, out of flux, nothing but flux, out of a deterministic primordial soup comes nothing more than just a chemical determinism, how do we even talk about violence and evil? In what terms do we define them? It was Friedrich Nietzsche who said since God had died in the 19th century, the 20th century would become the bloodiest century in history. We killed more people in the 20th century in warfare than the previous 19 centuries put together. When I made this statement in the Ukraine a few months ago, the president of the secular university sitting next to the professors there while their troops were rampaging in other places around the country as the former Soviet Union raising its demagogic head once again, the president looked at the professor next to him and nodded and muttered something. I could just about infer what he was saying. We are seeing it happening all over again now. Secularization. Where do we look for moral absolutes? Let me tell you how this works very gently and yet systemically till it has done its damage. When I moved to Atlanta in the 1980s, there was a historic case going on a pornographer who was supposed to be producing such horrific stuff that it made Playboy magazine look tame. And he was on trial, and so I was following the script every day in what was going on in the trial. I first found out that it took them days to select a jury because the man defending him did not want anybody who went to church to be on the jury. Because people who go to church, it said, have opinions on pornography. We want people who don't have any opinions on pornography so they can be objective. They were really looking for moral zombies. And I guess they found a group, and the jury was formed. And so the lawyer, brilliant in his discourse, would look at a person testifying against his client and would look at the witness and he would say to him, I have a question for you. Did you ever in your life go into an art gallery? Yes. Did you ever pay to go into an art gallery? Yes. Did you ever pay to go into an art gallery where there were paintings of the great masters of art? Yes. Did you ever go into one of those and pay to get into one of those where there were paintings of unclothed, disrobed people? Yeah. Will you then tell this jury why you paid to go into an art gallery where there were paintings of disrobed people, and you call that art, and you call my client stuff pornography? Would you explain the difference to this jury, please? And you know, how do you really do that? The lawyer is not looking for some clever answers out there. He's going to stop you in your tracks. He has done a fundamental explanation with a logical flaw. The logical flaw is known as one of the foundational laws of logic, which being interpreted is this: just because two things have one thing in common doesn't mean they have everything in common. This is the law that is flaunted again and again and again. Something like this could be said: elephants have ears, I have ears, therefore I'm an elephant. That could be uttered in this kind of description. I thought to myself, you know, if I were a witness and the lawyer threw this at me, what would I say? He's not looking for some philosophical explanation on ethical systems and so on. But I would love to invite a lawyer like that for a meal and say something like this to him. Have you ever read the biography of Michelangelo, who started to paint disrobed people? Have you ever read it, sir? And I don't know what his answer would be. I'd say, are you aware that when he first started to paint disrobed people, his teacher took him aside and said, Michael, I have a question for you. Why are you doing this? And Michelangelo said, because I want to see man as God sees man. And the teacher paused and looked at him and said, just remember, you are not God. He put enough of a caution to remind him that there had to be a block somewhere in this kind of reasoning, else it would move into a way of thinking that would see no difference between an artistic expression and the provocative intent of a pervert whose sole purpose is to so plant the human body in front of young minds, and now younger and younger and younger, till they so prostitute these young minds and pervert them and get them enslaved to an idea and to be possessed by this kind of a passion that marriages are broken up, relationships are ruptured, people will spend money and money after money after money till they are totally broke and find themselves so helpless for what has now been planted in their memory bank, so that every time they look upon a person of that opposite sex, nothing but the rewind button goes and the nudity picture comes into their mind again and again, and no one human being can satisfy that. My daughter, Naomi, works in rescuing women and children from the sex trafficking industry. She burned out on it. So young, she just burned out. The lady who first started to work with her in Bangkok was from New Zealand. She burned out and left. And this high burnout rate of seeing what is done to women in this trade and in this industry. And she said to me, Dad, in almost every case that I see, the men who use this and are involved in it are men who first got trapped into it in the pornography industry. And she's been pleading with me for quite a while to write a book on it. I said, I really don't even want to get my mind into that kind of sordid stuff. She said, I'll write on what is happening out there. You write on what it is intended to be like. We have to get it out there. She says, I don't think the average man knows what he does to his wife, to his spouse, when he is trapped in this kind of wickedness. It shatters the image of a young bride or a young woman when she finds that she's replaced by pictures of somebody else. C.S. Lewis dealt with this idea. And so here's this pornographer justifying this. But you see, here's what I want to say to you. When that woman sits in front of the lens of a camera, purely for this exploitation and using her body this way, Something within her ought to cause her to raise her arms up and says, stop all of this. I can't do this anymore. But the reason she won't is because when secularization has done the damage that it is going to do, it will produce a generation without a sense of shame. That's what we are looking at in the secularized consciousness, a total lack of shame. You show me a man without a sense of shame, and I will show you a man with a huge sword in his hand, lopping off heads and standing in the great theater of the visual expression to say, this is what I am doing, and I'm doing it brazenly, when something within his conscience ought to say, you have just defaced the image of God. That's what murder was all about in Genesis 9. Murder was prohibited because it is an attack upon the imago Dei, attack upon the image of God. Of course, the Islamic world won't talk about us as being created in the image of God. It is a unique Judeo-Christian truth. So man is dehumanized as being an expendable quantity in the pursuit of some supposedly noble idea which does ignoble things in the process. I say to you, young people, young men, what C.S. Lewis said, shame is like a scalding drink. If you touch it, it'll burn you, but you drink it of a cup properly, and it'll nourish and ultimately do what it is intended to do. Shame is intended to bring you and me to a point of recognizing we are sinners before God and need to be forgiven. Shame is a legitimate expression. Our society is now bereft of shame, where we glory in the wrong and condemn in the right and think we are now called progressives.